Hello, my name is Jessica Edwards and I'm a student at Wright State University. Today I will be discussing cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. Our cognitive architecture, as described by the cognitive load theory, is complex and is classified into 5 main principles. Information store principle refers to the amount of information stored in the long-term memory. The second, borrowing and reorganizing principle describes how we use information from others to form secondary knowledge. The randomness as genesis principle describes how the information we take from others is formed. Narrow limits of change principle is the information when it enters our working memory. Our working memory is, however, limited in capacity, and therefore our brains must determine what information to keep and what is discarded. Lastly, environmental organizing and linking principle allows all of the information to be processed and connections are made. There are 3 main types of cognitive load: intrinsic, extrinsic, and germane. Intrinsic cognitive load refers to the complexity that is with any materials. One cannot change the complexity, however, he can instruct on different areas that make up that activity. Extrinsic load refers to all the information that is not relative to the learned information. And germane is the part of cognitive load that is encouraged to grow. In this form, we use information that is relative to the content, and it is absorbed and actual learning takes place. Cognitive load theory is based upon 3 parts of processing information: sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. The main issue regarding our memory is that our working memory is very small in capacity for storing information. Because of this, it should not be overloaded with material or activities that do not directly relate to the information that is needed to be obtained. The cognitive theory of multimedia learning builds upon the cognitive load theory by stating that learning is more efficient and profound when presented with a learning model that includes both words and pictures. When learning is arranged in multiple learning channels, information does not compete with the other learning processes. There are 3 main assumptions when dealing with multimedia learning and cognitive overload. First, there are 2 channels for processing information: visual and auditory. These channels are separate and are processed separately. Second, each of these channels have no limit as to how much information they can process individually. So when information is given with both channels, we can then process more. Third, learning is a constant active process that includes filtering relative information, organizing and integrating it based on previous knowledge. There are 5 processes to which a learner must undergo for learning through multimedia to take place. First, they must select relative words, then select relative images to transition them into the sensory memory. Next, they organize those words and images and transfer them into the working memory, where they are processed and filtered to use only the relevant words and images to which they will learn by. Then a verbal and pictorial model is formed and combined with prior knowledge and experiences. Lastly, new knowledge is formed and transitioned into the long-term memory. The ideas discussed in the cognitive theory of multimedia learning should be taken into consideration when developing both online and face-to-face courses. By presenting information through both auditory and visual channels, through the use of written text, video narration, diagrams, and pictures, we can give our students more information with less cognitive overload. This will present with improved learning and will help us reach our main goal of improved recall and carryover when a student enters the medical field. Thank you so much for joining me.